Hi everyone, thank you very much for attending our special noodle class today again. My name is Akira and this is Megumi, my colleague. And so we are broadcasting this class from our headquarters in Kagawa. And like we are very excited to do this class because we are talking about udon, which is like really special noodle cuisine, for us, living in Kagawa, which is it used to be called Sanuki, and like Sanuki udon is actually one of the most famous and popular type of udon noodles, and that's part of like what we're going to talk about. But like what, specifically talking about how to craft your own udon noodles from scratch. So by watching today's class, you'll be able to learn how to craft your own noodles from scratch. So let's get started. So like we're gonna do the lecture part first, and then I'm gonna be brief, right? And then Megumi is gonna make some craft udon noodles from scratch on a udon machine, and later we're going to move to our kitchen where our school instructor is gonna show us some interesting udon dish, like udon as a like product, and that you guys don't want to miss. So let's get started. Like so, we're talking about crafting, how to craft your own noodles, and the udon noodles like are very specific noodles in terms of like this chart, right? Yeah, this is a chart. It's like vertical line, represents that's like protein content of flour that's used to make these noodles, right? And unlike ramen noodles, like there are like they are very diverse. Well, what I mean by that is like they're like everywhere, right? In terms of like protein content and like hydration ratio. It's like we had this chart, right? Hydration ratio and protein content, but in the case of like udon noodles, like we're just talking about like very kind of specific, like kind of small area of protein content, which makes the noodle texture hard. Higher the protein, the harder the noodle texture. But like x-axis, we're talking about elasticity. So like how elastic the udon noodle will be, like what, like or how fragile, how weak, how fragile the udon noodle texture be. So if you have like hard udon noodle, like it's a fragile noodle, like that's not really good noodle texture, right? And yeah, so this like Sanuki udon is like actually around like up here, it's like it's hard, but like at the same like really elastic, really viscous. But like on the opposite on the opposite side, right, we have like Kyushu udon, like Kyushu Island, like udon noodles that are like well, pretty popular in Kyushu Island. They are very, very soft actually, but like but elastic, viscous, right? So viscosity, elastic, like they call it actually viscoelastic. Um, it's like a property that's pretty important for udon noodles. And so let's start talking about like ingredients, and then like talking about ingredients because wheat flour is like very important component. And so I think we've gone through this little illustration like in the previous classes, but like let me do that briefly. And then so this is a wheat, right? Wheat grain. Let's pretend that this is wheat, right? And then inside we have like protein, starch, and then moisture, right? Moisture doesn't really change like from like wheat flour to wheat flour, and like it means that like 14%, and what changes like protein content, right? And then starch, right? The higher the protein, the harder, right? We've always said that. And then so for udon noodles, um, typical like 7 to 9% protein content. So starch, of course, like it's gonna be like 77 to 79%. Um, so we have like we're talking about like viscosity value, right? Viscosity, elasticity, like we have to like look deeper into starch, right? And so inside the starch, right, we have there are like something called like amylose and amylopectin. And in the previous class we talked about like the more amylopectin that there is, like the higher the viscous elasticity. So, high amylose ratio, the lower the viscous elasticity. So, like we want to have wheat flour that has higher ratio of like amylopectin, and so that shows up on this value that we can actually measure on the device that we have over here. It's called a Brabender machine. That's a German-made machine, and the unit of measurement is Brabender unit. And for udon noodles that are like usually thicker noodles, we want to have this viscosity value of 800 BU at least. Basically the higher the BU, the higher the viscosity value. So it's no brainer. But like um, what I want to emphasize here is that like, well, we have a machine that like measure this particular value of your flour that you're kind of like, you may be like thinking about like using for your udon noodles or, ramen noodles or whatever, right? So if you can send us your flour sample, we can actually get it measured on that machine for you. And, we won't charge you so for that. So, just feel free to contact us if you're interested. And in Japan, we use basically like 3 to 4 types of wheat flour. They're grown in different places, and then so in Japan, like we actually import a lot of wheat flours. That are especially designed for udon noodles, from Australia, right? And actually, a lot of udon shops like in Japan like use this type of wheat flour because that's pretty stable in quality. And I bet like a lot of Japanese like who love eating at udon shops, don't know, they're eating udon noodles that are made of wheat flour that's imported from Australia. But um, yeah, that's the fact. And then, but second, like famous wheat flour that's used in Japan is like Hokkaido flour. And what stands out like about this flour is that it's high in protein, so like it's harder. And another one that it's used in Japan is like Kyushu, like that that we just talked about. So that's low in protein content, like so that makes it soft, right? So and then others are like kind of grow in different areas, the different regions, with the different characteristics. But like it's like these three are the major types of wheat that we use. And so talking about ingredients, and we talked about like solid ingredients, wheat flour. That's basically pretty much like most of the udon shops use, right? But like we could use, of course, like other types of grain, like rye, flour, like or some other like grains that are like unique in your market in your place, right? If you have some. And we did the class before, like a few weeks ago. We flavor the noodles, so you could flavor your udon noodles as well. And if your noodle like udon noodles like lacks like elasticity, you can't help it. Like you can't have like certain types of flour that with a higher viscosity value, and you could reinforce that with some certain types of starch, like tapioca starch or something. So these may be the solid ingredients that you may want to use for your udon noodles. And for liquid ingredients, right? So like of course water, right? Like it's a high hydration ration water. I mean noodles. So there's a lot of water used, and of course salt, right? Salt. So kind of like similar to currency that's used for ramen noodles. Like salt, it's a lot of salt used to develop this very distinctive like noodle texture for udon. And vinegar is used to as well like preservatives, and it also works to control the pH level of the cooking water to retain as much noodles as possible, like from dissolved into the cooking water, and I think we talked about like in the previous class. And I'm not gonna go deeper into that, but so what I want to emphasize here is that like what the hydration ratio and salinity level of the solution that we add to the flour, right, is like we have to adjust it like depending on like how cold, like between the temperature of the noodle making room is. So basically, like right now, like when it's getting colder, right, towards the winter, right, hydration ratio should be higher, and when it gets hotter, right, like in the summer, like it's like it's the hydration ratio should be like small lower, and but like for salinity level, should be lower like when it's cold, and higher when it's hot, because just because like we have to keep down the germ activity. That's a role like kind of like salt kind of plays in the um, udon dough development, and keep down like protein breaking enzyme, right? So when it's hot, like these activities are like higher, like they're more active, so we have to like keep them down by adding more salt. And then what other roles like salt does for udon dough is that like it tightens the gluten structure, so it promotes more bounciness, and it promotes the like noodle or like wheat flavors as well. So that's the role that salt plays, and then for udon noodles. And um, so other ways you can crush your noodles is that like you can blend, right, different flours. And for example, like if you have like three types of flour available, right, at your disposal, right? And then so for example, like it has like protein of 8%, and viscosity like 900 BU, which is like relatively high in elasticity, right? And then you have wheat B, it's protein like 9%, so that's like harder, and 800 BU, right? So it's just a little lower in elasticity. And then you have wheat C, right? That's 7% in protein. It's pretty soft, and 1,000 BU as like really high in viscosity, right? So like, what if you mix them, like blend them, like different ratios, right? 70%, 25%, 5%, and changing these ratios, like like result in dramatically different noodle texture. So that's one way you could fry your noodles, and of course like you could add like some other ingredients, like solid ingredients as well, like we talked about. And other ways you could do is that like you could change, right, control like noodle sizes and shapes of the noodles. So you could have like thin noodles for 2.2 times like 2.7, like so 2. Like the first one is like thickness, and second one is the width. But then like for thick ones, again extra thick, and like so these changes like noodle size like will affect the noodle texture dramatically. So you want to try. Then when you cook them, the size changes as well. Like because they expand, right, with that water. So you have this. This is a cut noodle, a fresh noodles, and it's like this thickness and width, and this dimension, right? Dimension is like very important, and we usually do like in thickness being 1 and like width being like 1.6. But it depends on that size as well. But like when it's cooked, right, that weight becomes like 1.6 times heavier. So like with that water, like cooking water absorb, and then kind of shapes like that, and then because these are the dents, the four sides like dented, and these dents like kind of like help hold more soup, and give like more like better noodle texture. So that's why we have like this, well, the ratio, right, the dimension ratio. And you can have like flat noodles, any curly noodles as well, depending on what types of soup and sauce like you're coupling your noodles with. And so let's talk about noodle making part. And usually when we are making authentic udon noodles, right? Like with a hydration ratio of like 40 or 45%, it takes 2 days. It takes about like 2 days. And so there are two parts to it. And so the first one, like for day one, like we do like dough prep, right? Um, so we have to weigh and prepare, salt water solution, like because we use a lot of salt, right? Like, it's kind of crazy. Like, we have to prepare, like, for example, like in the summer, we have to prepare like 15% salty level water. That's way, way saltier than the seawater. But, you have to weigh the right amount of salt, right amount of water to get that right salty level. And so, as I've been saying, right, like, weighing, measuring the ingredients, like is the most important process, right, in a production process, like, because, if you screw that up, the rest of the process wouldn't matter. Okay, so mixing, right? So mixing, it's relatively like short time because, that's hydration. Like the higher the hydration, the shorter the mixing time. And the resting process is something that's unique in udon noodles because it's hydration ratio noodles, and then it's got a lot of salt. Then you have to develop like gluten, so it's better to have like proper resting process, which is then so we do these resting process like over 2 stages. And so first one, like that's 20 degrees Celsius for 2 hours, and after that, like we take the dough out like from the resting cabinet, and then we press it like and make it firm, like to work it and to develop the gluten. And this we put that back into resting cabinet, and then we rest it at 18 degrees Celsius overnight. So resting process like provides a lot of functions and like hydration, like promote hydration and degassing of the dough, and it activates like kind of enzyme inside dough like to promote like wheat flavor, and of course it relaxes the internal stresses of the dough. So that's the day one that we do like for to do the dough prep, right? And then so the next day like we come in, right, and then take the dough out, cut it into, divide it into like proper size for sheeting and cutting and cooking. And each process like kind of, well, you do have that a little practice to get it right. So this process like we're gonna show you guys in the actual demo, right? So let's start making udon noodles on the udon machine. Yeah, someone asked me, can our like udon machine make, um, yeah, inani udon? And then like inani udon like is a bit different from like fresh noodles, but like in terms of like size and then maybe like noodle texture, yeah, we can make something pretty close to inani udon. And for those of you like who don't know, like what inani udon is, like that's really one of like most famous types of like udon noodles in it's, well, originated in northern part of Japan, and it's actually pretty thin noodle. And all right, so yeah, this is the, so it's pretty like this is like a blend of three different types like flowers. Let's pretend, right? So that you can't tell, right? Like because it's all white, it's all mixed up, right? So and then so this is the amount of salt, right? Look at that much salt, like you're adding to that flour. This is the vinegar. Yeah, the the acid, and then water, right? And so it's gonna be um, so this is the our udon machine that's called Shinichi, and it's only one type. And so this particular mixer is a 12.5 kilograms I mean mixer, and then you can mix up to like 12.5 kilograms of dough at a time, and that's actually half the quantity of the 25-kilogram bag that's standard actually in Japan. And so yeah, so you have to dissolve this salt, right? Like thoroughly, right? Completely into the water, right? So that's a bit of a tough job. So you have to completely dissolve it, and then so yeah, watch like how she's doing it, and yeah, so you have to make sure that all the salt is melted, and that's okay. All right, so um, vinegar, right? So that's just well, vinegar could be like any kind of vinegar, like grain vinegar. Type of grain vinegar will be fine. And so we're going to make a dough, right? And the mixing time, it's total mixing time is just 5 minutes, and then but we want to add just not the all like liquid, but like just probably 2/3 of it first, right? And then yeah, and then like mix it for 4 minutes to this is just like kind of like to ensure to like good hydration of dough, um, and then yeah, it's like mix it for 4 minutes first, right? And but we can't. For me, it's like precious time, like to waste. So like we don't want to just keep watching, just how it can be mixed. So um, luckily, like making me like prepared dough in advance, right? So that's after the first resting process. So 28 degrees Celsius, like for 2 hours. So she saved us 2 hours and 3 minutes. And so what we are going to do is to press it, right? Press it. So this is a press machine to press unit. And yeah, in old days, right? Like like these ramen shops would well, actually there are currently like there are some udon shops like that do it too, but like people like would actually step on the like dough to well work it, right? Work the dough, and yeah, but like of course like they have like some like the cover over the dough, but it's like literally like people like just like stepping like with their feet, and but that's actually a tough job too, like it's because it's very tiring, because you have to like step on it, probably for 20 minutes, like 30 minutes to like completely work it, right? So first press, and yeah, the dough becomes like that, but like they are still rough, right? So like we need to do this a couple times to make sure that all that dough is like worked up, right? And then the gluten is fully developed inside dough. yeah, you guys can imagine like like a guy actually stepping on the dough with his feet, right? Yeah, it's like if you don't know like what he's doing, like, and then you'd be yeah, it's like just just imagine like you just going to this udon shop and like you see a guy like yeah, sipping on something, the feet his feet, and then like eat. Then you go in and like eat your bowl of like udon, and then later you found out that like the guy was sipping on dough that like udon dough that you just had, right? Like, but that's actually what's happening now at some udon shops in Kanagawa too. So that's the third press, and you maybe like notice that like dough is like getting smoother, and like the surface like getting smoother and smoother. And as she was like each time like she's folding it inwards, and to make sure like all the areas of the dough like gets that press, right? So we want to have like kind of equal amount of like pressure on like entire areas of dough. And after 4 minutes of mixing, yeah, so we want to sort of like kind of clean inside and make sure like all the dough debris, the flour is just kind of mixed up like the other parts of the dough, right? And then yeah, and then we just mix it for like another 1 minute. So the total mixing time is 5, right? So that's the dough um, done for the third press. Okay, maybe yeah, it needs another round of press. So yeah, so she's folding it and yeah, get ready for another press. Okay, that's the alarm that let us know that the mixing is done. Yeah, so you can imagine like the guy, well, they have to like step on the dough with his feet like for 30 minutes to get that sort of like same dough, right? That's that's been worked with that gluten developed, right? So but like you just have to do this like 4 times to get the same effect, right, on the dough, and that saves a lot of time and energy. So before we put this dough back in a resting cabinet, it's wise to divide them, divide it into like sizes that are kind of easier for you to be able to like start sheeting the next day, because the workspace in this the machine is limited. Like as you sheet it, the dough gets larger and larger, and then like gets like harder and harder like for you to be able to like kind of handle it like well properly. And so with ease, so you want to divide it like before you place them back into the resting cabinet. So yeah, let's wait for until 8 a.m. tomorrow morning for this to be done. We have to like rest it like 18 degrees Celsius like at for overnight. So yeah, we have to wait, right? But of course, that's we don't want to waste you guys time like like that. So like, yeah, she made prepared the dough the day before yesterday, and the day before I mean yesterday, right? So that's the dough after second resting process. So it's like a workout, and like doing exercise, like kind of walking a muscle. And so before you, right after you do the press, right? Press exercise. Like the dough is like pumped up, like it's like walked up, like pumped up, right? Like your muscle. And but like after the second resting, right? The muscle or like the dough is like rested. So like you know when you push it like you can feel that it's not as bouncy as like before, and so it's easier to yeah process as well. It's like when you push it, right, and then like if you push that dough, like you just press, right, and then um, it'll be like really hard to like kind of like press it, like kind of keep it down, like kind of flatten it. So we're gonna start sheeting, and so we start from like first gear, and that's the like widest roller gap, and we gradually thin it. We gradually thin it, and that's important. And because if we like thin it like drastically, and that would like damage like all like gluten structure that we worked so hard to develop, right, so far. So that's why we have this gear, right? The shift gear that goes from like first one to like 12, just kind of gradually like narrow the roller gap. So it's kind of like dough sheet, getting like kind of in sheet shape and getting thinner and thinner. And notice like if like as she like sheets the dough, she's like dusting it, right? Because this is a high hydration noodle, and so you have to dust it. A type of dusting powder like she's using is actually this exactly the same wheat flour that like she used to make this dough. See, it's like the area of the dough sheet is like getting larger and larger, like as it gets thinner, and then that's common sense. But like, um, so it has this sensor that measures the thickness of dough, and remember we talked about you know the noodle size is pretty important, and the thickness and width, right? And that's very important. So getting the right thickness in this process like is critical. Like developing the making great noodle texture, and it's not showing, so like it's probably too thick still. So the display is showing the thickness of the dough that's being well sheeted, right? And see, so that's 6.5 millimeter, but that's double. So like divide in half, right? So that's roughly about 3.2 millimeter in thickness. So she's folding it to fit to like fit that into, well, the size of the cutter that's it's going through. And so we're gonna cut it. And yeah, so this machine uses like the cutter, exactly like kind of pretty similar to like how, like handmade noodles are cut using that knife, right? And yeah, so they're like the noodles like lined up, like pretty organized. And then, and then well, you have to like sprinkle the dusting powder, and that's different. Like this time was like around like that's like starch, some type of starch, right? And so that's going to prevent the noodles from sticking, especially the area that are cut, right? And those are the area like that are like prone to sticking. So yeah, you have to like dust them, dust well. So this way, she's separating this batch of noodles into roughly kind of like I think like in kind of batch, like in kind of like proper sizes, and then like kind of combing through the noodles to kind of make them straight. Like because when you pour them into cooker, right? If they are like tangled up, and then like they are not going to cook well. So know, while she can like she's kind of like straightening them up. So okay, yeah, that's beautiful. And it's so let's move to our kitchen, and let's cook some udon noodles. Yeah, so she's our instructor, like Ms. Sano, and she's going to show us the how to cook udon noodles, and then at the same time like how to wash them, and like put them into some product that's like really interesting, and then very appropriate for this time of year. So for especially for those people like for watching from Northern Hemisphere, when it's cold. And so please, let's get started. 今回はテイクアウトできる辛い鍋焼きうどんを作っていきます。 Okay, so what she's making today is that like she's gonna make udon noodles that are that are for takeout, and but udon noodles that are like kind of hot pot udon noodles, and and at the same time, like it's spicy hot pot udon noodles. That's for takeout. You just watch how she puts the noodles into the cooking water, right? And notice like how how much like the heat is the boiler is set at, right? And then like look at it like bubbles, like the boiling, the intensity of boiling, right? Like when you put the udon, it has to be like rolling, boiling, and then yeah, and then the timer is set to 7 minutes, and
回、タイマー7分に設定してます。鍋焼きうどんで後から火が入るのでちょっと短めにいつも9分入れてるんですけど今回7分にしていきます。
Okay, so for regular type of udon noodles, like that's the cooking time is like usually 9 minutes, but if we are doing well nabeyaki, that's hot pot udon noodles, and so because udon noodles are going to be cooked again, so yeah, that's why like he's gonna cook them shorter time.
はい、でこちらが、7分茹でた後のものです。で、こ
Yeah.
こに、はい、今から盛り付けしていきます。
Okay, so that's the udon noodle like that. She only cooked for 7 minutes, and then because we hate wasting you guys time, and so she's going to plate it. So that's kind of like how like leafy vegetable like we have in Japan, like typically, and then that's a kind of leafy vegetable that's used for hot pot in the winter season.
これニラです。
And that's the type of vegetable that like we use. Like it looks like green onions, but like it is not. Like it's kind of like kind of garlicky, the flavor to it. And that's just tofu, and yeah, and it leaks, right? And shiitake mushroom. Look at that cut that she made, right? And then like that's carrots, and then that like they're curved carrots, like that's beautiful. And for the meat, like protein, that's the pork pork shoulder, I'm guessing. So that's done, and yeah, so this is for takeout. So like you want to put a wrap on it, and yeah, close it, right, and then yeah, so that's a soup that like that's vacuum sealed, right? Soup that she made like in advance, right?
味噌をベースにしたスープになってます。
That's like miso based soup.
こっちが、辛い粉。
Then I'm guessing like chili powder, right? Yeah.
それを袋に入れてテイクアウトとして。
So yeah, so well, you may have like your own package or something like but like this is basically like basic kind of package like well you typically see in Japan maybe like yeah you could have like take out like at like some udon shop. So that's it, and then yeah, so the customer would just have to like kind of pour the soup and then like when you get home when they get home, right, and then just pour the soup and then like just heat it and everything like just cook it, right? Oh, okay, yeah, so she's going to cook it, right? So yeah, miso is like very seasonal. I guess like kind of brings like kind of seasonality like in the winter when it's cold, and then like it's very um, yeah, it's very yeah, so like kind of soul food kind of yeah sense that like usually used for kind of hot pot, and it goes pretty well with the spicy like it's hot spicy um, yeah flavor. So
から辛い粉かけます。
Yeah, and just sprinkle that. I'm pretty sure that's chili powder. Yeah,
はい。
she's saying like hot powder, but
で、これで、具材に火が通るまで煮込んで完成になります。
yeah. So like all you just have to do is just just cook it until all the ingredients are heated and cooked. Then you can just like you can just start digging.
はい、以上です。
So yeah, that's it, and that's pretty easy. The like product as long as you have like your own like craft noodles, then it's an easy product to make and we'll take out, and that's really good for the winter time. Like it's getting colder, and people love this type of product, and it's gonna make a pretty good takeout menu at your restaurant. So let's please try it, and then yeah. So yeah. So that's a like craft noodles, and then of course there are many ways, like of course like almost like unlimited ways that you can make your own craft noodles, and this is just a great example, like Misano like showed us for your own takeout craft noodles, and yeah, and so next week. We are doing another class on some of the subject, and I don't think we have web page like already up and running, but like please come back to our website like in a few days, and then thank you so much for attending your class, and I'll see you. We hope to see you guys in the next class. So thank you very much. Bye bye.